Hello, and welcome to the Battery Low Podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Matt.
And today, we're talking about a bunch of stuff. We're talking about what Matt and I have been playing and watching. We've got some news reactions that we have some thoughts to, obviously. And then we'll wrap it up by talking about what we're excited for next and kind of what's on the horizon. So, Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing real good. I'm excited to get to the meat of the podcast. Those first two episodes were kind of like, here's some list of things we like, so you kind of get to know our tastes. But now we're in it, folks. We're talking about news. We're getting deep dives. We're getting discussions, opinions, reactions, reviews. We're getting into it, okay? Yeah. Buckle yourselves up.
Yeah, lists, they're out of here. What is this, a grocery store? We don't got no lists.
They're so
here.
Last year.
Yeah, come on. No, I'm also excited. I'm excited to start to get into it. So, jumping right into it. Matt, what have you been playing? What have you been watching recently? What's been going on?
Give you a little update. I've been playing a lot of this little game called The Sea of Thieves.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm familiar.
I've kind of been into this game ever since about season 3, which is when they did the big Pirates Life expansion. Like, I had been on and off before that, but then Pirates Life really sealed the deal for me. Because I'm a big Pirates of the Caribbean fan, and I'm a big Disneyland fan. Yep, and they had a lot of references to the ride in that, which it was just great. So anyways, I've been playing it recently. With you, in fact, we've been on that tall tale grind.
We have. We sure have.
And it's been a lot of fun. There's a lot to do in that game now. It's in a really good state. They just launched a new adventure. It's kind of controversial. I was really lucky with it, but it expects people to behave cooperatively.
I've seen that. I've seen that reaction. Yeah.
And not everybody has done that. There's been some griefing, and I fortunately haven't run into that, but I've been seeing it online, and it's kind of unfortunate. I wish they would just. I know this is like controversial, but I wish they would just disable PvP in some of these adventures, because it's like there's no point in having it. It just ruins it for other people.
You've also got to think maybe they've dug themselves a hole by naming their game Sea of Thieves, right?
Sure.
It's not just like cool sailors hanging out,
Right.
It's
That's always the thing that people say. Like when people request like PvE servers, which I'm not advocating for, but when people do that, the replies are just, it's called Sea of Thieves, and it's like, okay, but
no.
but especially for these like time limited adventures, and the whole point of it is co-op. Like, don't even allow for PvP at all. Like, I don't know what the point in allowing that is. It just ruins it for people. There's no because there's not even like treasure to steal. There's nothing to steal in this adventure. It's purely like story and gameplay and cooperative. so
people,
just disable
there's nothing to steal. People are just like griefing. They're just like in there.
Yeah.
Just
so there's
that's actually
the respawn timer is instant because you're already in the like Sea of the Damned.
Oh no!
And so people are just like farming kills for no reason. There's not even like a stat that applies to or anything, so you can't there's no XP or monetary gain from doing it. So it's just kind of
dudes being bros.
Bad. Just guys being frickers. But outside of Sea of Thieves, which I've been loving that new grind. I'm at level 99 in the season pass. The season came out just mere weeks ago. I've been doing some Destiny 2 prep. The new season's coming out so soon.
I know.
So I've been making some Arc builds. We recently got some deets on Arc 3.0, and I'm very excited to check out that new Hunter Super.
Yeah.
So I got this new Liar's Handshake build going on. I got a Frosty's build, and of course I got a Raiden Flux build.
Of course.
So I'm ready.
Yeah.
And then I've been watching a bunch of Wes Anderson movies, actually. I did like a whole weekend where I was like, you know what? I love this guy, and I haven't seen a lot of his movies, but ones I have like are some of my favorites. So I'm just gonna like catch up. And I watched about 3 of his movies in a weekend, and they were great. I think I'm confident in saying he might be my favorite director now, just because nobody's doing it like him. His movies are so quirky, and they're so stylistically distinct and interesting.
Right.
But outside of that, I watched She-Hulk, and hot take, She-Hulk was not bad.
I saw someone say it was the new gold standard for Marvel shows. Do you share that opinion?
The new gold standard, I would not say that at all. But I would say it's good. I'd say it's like Hawkeye level, where you're like, yeah, it's good. It's not like amazing.
This person also had seen the first 4 episodes, so maybe first impressions.
Yeah, I've only seen the first one.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm interested to see.
Yeah, at the time of the recording of this podcast, only the first episode is out for us normal people.
Yeah.
And the first episode was good. I was pleasantly surprised by it. It was funny. It was fun. It was kind of different in tone to some of the Marvel stuff we've been getting recently. And so far it's smaller scale, which I like. But it does feel a bit rushed. Like the episodes are really short.
Right.
So I think they're all like under 30 minutes, which I think kind of does some of the character moments a disservice. Yeah. But it was a pleasant time. So I'm actually interested in watching more of it. The trailers kind of made me think, it's not really for me, but I'm going to be watching all of it now because this first episode left a good impression on me.
Yeah. That's always the balance with these Disney Plus Marvel shows, right? Is like the pacing of them, because I feel like that's kind of been my reaction to a lot of them, is like I wish they would have given this more time.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, because they're sticking so heavily to like the Netflix model of like 8 episodes or whatever, but it's like for some of these characters, I feel like they need more.
Yeah, and you've got to think they have some sort of data or something tracking like watcher. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Like
viewer retention or whatever.
Yeah, viewer retention and stuff like that. Like I wonder if they go beyond that, if people drop off, and which at the same time, I don't know who these psychos are who like start a show and don't finish them. Maybe there's a lot of them out there.
Listen, I have watched 3 episodes of Miss Marvel and I have not finished it, but I will eventually. My God. But I just
okay. So one of my best friends is one of these psychos. No, that's great to hear. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm a psycho.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the same. Got some Sea of Thieves, some Destiny 2 prep in there. I've been kind of working through my backlog. The release schedule for 2022 has been pretty dry, especially over summer, where there's not a lot of new titles coming out. And I feel like we're kind of in an interesting time. I feel like so much stuff got delayed because of the pandemic and COVID. Understandably. But it just seems like we're going to get hit with an onslaught of games eventually, right? And I think we got a little bit of a taste of that, kind of later last year and stuff like that. But I mean, seeing this year just nothing coming out and understanding like what's on the horizon, God, it feels like things are just going to come out so rapidly. But because of that, I have been working through my backlog. So I finally got to playing Cyberpunk 2077. And yeah, I'm in the process of writing a review for that and writing a review for the next game I'll talk about. But Cyberpunk is a game, when I initially finished it, I was like, you know what, I'm kind of glad that's over. But then this is kind of typical me. I'm big on like, how do you say it? Like symbolic gestures. So like as soon as I got done, I was like, I'm uninstalling this. I'm never going to go back to it. And then for the next like 2 days, I just like couldn't stop thinking about it and like other things I could have been doing or stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'll re-download. And so I installed it again and just spent more time. And that actually left a better taste in my mouth. But my sort of like my tweet review of Cyberpunk 2077 is it is a game that just requires investment. Like I put, like 30 some odd hours into it. But it wasn't until like hour 15 where it felt like, okay, I've got a build going. I'm understanding the world a little more. Like things are happening.
That long to click, huh?
Well, okay, before I even saw like the splash screen, like Cyberpunk 2077, I was like 7 hours in. Like I played it decent, and like some games, that's the game, right? It's like you play a 7-hour campaign, like that's it. And so I played a handful of hours and finally saw the splash screen, and even at that point, I was like, oh God, like what am I getting into?
Right, and your thing isn't like you don't like long games, right? Because you 100%ed Elden Ring, so
Right. Absolutely.
you're not opposed to long games.
Well, I mean, I I play Destiny too. I'm also not adverse to investment, right? Like it's not the it's not the investment level in games that turns me away. I think for Cyberpunk, it is a game where you have to go in knowing like, okay, this has to be a game that I just really have to play. Like I really have to get into it and feel immersed and do the side quests and feel like I am a part of Night City. And I think that is probably the best experience anyone will get out of the game, is feeling like I'm in this game, you know? Which it just didn't really sell me that way. And then it wasn't until I did one full playthrough that I went back. And it's also one of those games where there's like a point of no return. And so if you do want to play more, it just takes you back to like a previous save before you hit that point of no return. And so I started there again, and I was like, okay, let me go and do like a bunch of side quests and like other, like story beats and stuff like that. And I don't know, for some reason that felt really enjoyable, just to kind of go and like enjoy the world of Cyberpunk and do side quests. Like if I were to rate like the Cyberpunk world and side quests, it'd be a lot higher than the campaign itself. And so combined, the score is,
interesting,
kind of lower in my mind. But I just found that for my first playthrough, I just kind of focused on like the main story beats and was kind of unsatisfied. And then when I went back and really found myself like investing in the world, it felt a lot better. And so anyway, finally got to playing that. So glad I played it. I don't know that I'll ever go back. Maybe if they release like a fun DLC or something, I'll go check it out. But the next game, though, we're talking GOTY contender. Okay, game of the year quality, and that is the Spider-Man remastered. That used to only be on PlayStation, that recently released on PC. So I, obviously being the Marvel head that I am, bought it, jumped in, and man, I've just been enjoying it. It is so much fun to play. It is so polished, which is interesting. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I think immersion in games is way more important to me now than maybe it's ever been. And to the point where it was like I wouldn't wear a certain like suit, like spider suit or costume in that game, because I couldn't imagine like the voice and like body type of my character being in that suit.
Oh my gosh.
And it's funny, but like that totally enhanced the experience for me, where that game is like so customizable and it feels so fun that you feel like you can just kind of like be Spider-Man for a little while. And I love that. I super enjoyed that. So still kind of wrapping up that game. I have completed the main story at this point. Now I'm working through the DLCs and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just fun. It's just been a fun change in pace, going straight from Cyberpunk to Spider-Man, where Spider-Man is just a game that the movement and combat and everything just feels so fluid and free, and New York is a lot of fun to swing around, and so that's been really enjoyable. Been super happy with that. But I've also kind of been on a movie kick. I, for the first time, watched the first Top Gun because I wanted to go see Top Gun Maverick in theaters. And I don't know why I never really got around to seeing the first Top Gun. I just never really did. But watched it, and it's almost a comedy at this point. I thought that movie was so funny just because of how like 80s it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you watch it and you're like, wow, like this is an 80s movie. There's a scene where Tom Cruise is hitting on a girl and she like leaves the bar and goes into the bathroom, and dude just follows her into the bathroom, and she was like,
no,
and she was like, I thought you'd come in here, and it was like a flattering thing, like it was, and
no,
like, yeah, so we're watching it, we're like, that wouldn't happen now. But it's just kind of one of those things where it was like in the context of like, this is an 80s movie, was kind of funny, and so that watching it, there was some stuff like that where I was like, oh man, this is a lot different than I imagined the new one is. But the new one was like so good. They're both great movies. I don't think the 80s-ness of the original Top Gun like hurts it at all. It was really fun to watch. Really good, just kind of action, you know, dudes being dudes movie,
Mm-hmm.
which is, you know, it's kind of the only way to describe it, I suppose. And then Top Gun Maverick was definitely more modern, which I think only was a service to it, but still kind of had that like dudes being dudes type flow to it. But they were super enjoyable. I was actually, I haven't looked into it yet. I would really like to. But like Tom Cruise is like the guy that does all of his own stunts, right? Like he's kind of known for that. But like jets go really fast, you know, like planes go fast. Yeah. So that's my hot take. Planes are fast. But like, I don't know, as I was watching it, kind of knowing that, you're kind of like, wow, like how much of this could he actually do? And just like thinking about it. So, yeah, it's just kind of
that's
interesting.
The thing that's kind of impressive to me, because you mentioned how it's modern, and it definitely is. Yeah. It's, you know, it's slicker, it's more stylish, it's, you know, camera's not as shaky in some parts, and they definitely have a bigger budget. But what does separate it from a lot of modern movies is it does not overly rely on CGI, which I appreciated about it. Like, that's why I always go to the Mission Impossible movies. I don't have any idea what's going on with the story of those movies, but like they are a sight to behold. Like the stunts in those movies, they're just amazing, because like it's kind of that magic of cinema, like you going to a cinema to see something you can't see in real life. Right. And that effect kind of gets dulled when it's just like, well, anything can happen when you animate it. But when you know, like, oh my gosh, people did this. Yeah. Or there was like some sort of clever physical trickery that was done to make you think they did this, but it like feels authentic. That's where the magic of that movie lies, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So both those were fun to watch. I'm glad I went to go see Maverick in person, or not in person, in theaters. I guess I see all movies in person, but I'm happy I got to. I'm happy I got to see it on the big screen, and have that experience. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's what I've been playing and watching. But Matt, let's talk about some news. So over the last maybe month, there's been some hot news that has been coming out, and for everyone at home, I will kind of read a glimpse of just the most interesting parts of these news articles. So I'm not just reading you articles, but the first piece of news that we have is 1% of Netflix users play games on their platform, which immediately you hear that headline and you think like, oh, that's not very good. Like, why is Netflix doing games? Who's it even for?
Yeah, or you think Netflix has games?
Yes, exactly, totally. Which I guess on the mobile app, which I mean, maybe I just underestimate how many people watch Netflix on like their phones and iPads and stuff. But there's like a games tab that isn't there on like, you know, a Fire Stick or an Xbox or something. So that's kind of interesting. But I read that headline, but I want to read this little piece of the article from Eurogamer. So go over there, give them a click. But here's what they say. There are roughly 221 million Netflix subscribers. So 221 million people who subscribe. Jeez. But only 1.7 million actually engage with the subscription services games on a daily basis. To put that into perspective, that is less than 1% of users. That feels way different to me than the headline 1% of Netflix.
Yeah.
Right? Because like 1.7 million people, that's not a small amount. Like that's a lot of people.
Every day too.
Yes, it engages with the services games on a daily basis. So you're telling me there's even more people who have interacted with the games like not as regularly? Like
that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Who are these people?
I know. Honestly, it's probably you, right? But just because you don't finish shows, like you're probably also in that category. You're over here playing Netflix games.
I can't finish Miss Marvel. I'm too busy playing my Glip Glap games. What do they even have? Like, what are their games?
I have no idea. Is it like Stranger Things Candy Crush? I have no idea. But I'm
gonna investigate while you talk more about this.
Yeah, please. But that's just crazy to me. That's so many people on a daily basis playing these games. I think if any other service that offered games had that type of engagement, they'd be ecstatic, right? Of like almost 2 million people are playing our games. on a daily basis. And beyond that, even more millions. And so I understand Netflix is a juggernaut in the streaming space. 221 million people globally subscribing to Netflix is huge, right? So I get that, like, in comparison, maybe that is, I don't know, maybe not what they're shooting for. But I don't know. This feels like a lot of people, especially breaking into something as competitive as the games industry. And on top of that, something as competitive as the mobile game industry, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. What's your take? What are your thoughts on it?
So, first of all, I was like, what? They have games? Because it's weird. It feels like they just kind of snuck it in there. Like, I don't feel like there's an attempt to rebrand as like Netflix as a platform for all kinds of media, except for instead of just, television and movies. So feels like they're not doing a great job getting the word out there, but apparently 1.7 million people know about it. But I'm looking at the games here, and they're like generic mobile games. It's like Mahjong, Card Blast, a little bowling game. There is a Stranger Things game that I did play. It was like, I think this is the one that was just released. Yeah, on the like normal app stores and stuff as well. So you can just play it here as well, I guess. It's like a little pixel adventure game. It's pretty fun. It was kind of getting you hyped up for like season 2 or 3 or something like that back in the day. But I don't know. I don't see the point in this. I don't think that I see Netflix as a platform for this kind of stuff, and I especially don't think, unless they're gonna like synergize more with their shows, it just seems so random. And it makes me wonder, like, are these like, how are they making money off of these? Are these like microtransaction machines? Like,
that's a good point.
What's the end game here? Do they want to be like a Stadia type deal, but only successful? Or like what? I just don't see the end game here. And they also have, I've counted them here, it's like 20 games total on their service.
Wow.
And enough people must play like Into the Dead 2 Unleashed or Bowling Ballers every day that they keep this service alive. But it just, I don't see the appeal of it. I want to be watching things on Netflix, not playing things, Sure. But I'm also not a big mobile gamer. Like, I play Pokemon Go, and that's about it. So, this space really isn't for me.
I wonder if they. Well, I don't wonder. I can imagine they would have more success if they pulled like the Star Wars or Marvel way of doing things, where they just like went to some big publisher like EA or Activision or something like that and said, hey, we want to make games using our IP. And so like, we want you to make like a spin-off of Stranger Things, or we want you to make, I don't know,
a Squid Game.
Netflix does. Yeah, exactly. Like stuff like that. Or Bridgerton. Is that a Netflix exclusive show? I don't know.
Did you say Riverton?
Wait, no, isn't it Bridgerton? Isn't that a show? Or
that's something.
Yeah, Bridgerton, totally. You had me second guessing myself. I think that's a Netflix show. I don't know what it's about, but it looks kind of like old timey English here or there, whatever. I don't know. You've got to imagine they have enough Netflix originals at this point where like they could probably break into the game space that way.
Because it seems like they're trying to appeal to like the middle-aged mom who wants to play Candy Crush all the time. And it's like, are they really going to go to Netflix and play their Blick Block games? Like, what? Why? Yeah. Just go on the App Store. What is Netflix offering here that is better than what you can get on the App Store? It seems just like a weird, like you have to go to this new service to do it instead of just having them on your phone. I don't understand it.
Yeah, or they could break into like the Telltale type of games where it's like, they had those games like The Walking Dead, where it's like you're playing a game, but you're more like interacting with like.
See, that's something interesting. They did that with something like that with like Black Mirror. Like there was like an interactive Black Mirror
Oh
episode
yeah, I do remember that.
where you could like kind of choose what happened. So like if they leaned more into like a choose your own adventure style thing, I could see that being interesting. Or like
Yeah.
like those like horror games that you just kind of watch and make decisions.
Yeah.
Like The Quarry is the newest one, I think.
Sure.
Something like that where it's like adds a level of interactivity, but I just don't see the point in having mobile games on here, especially if they're not going to add it to like the Xbox app or the your Roku or whatever. It's just going to be these little mobile games.
Yeah. Which
and I just don't see
Yeah.
unless they're experimenting with it. I just don't see where that leads.
Yeah. In their defense, though, I think this could be wrong. Someone should fact check this, but I think in the most recent like Activision shareholders meeting, like the one towards the end of the last fiscal year, King, who makes Candy Crush Saga, they were the most. They brought in the most revenue for Activision. So the mobile game division of Activision Blizzard, who makes like Call of Duty, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, like huge games, right?
Right.
Candy Crush brought them the most money, essentially. And so I imagine someone at Netflix is like, look at how much money mobile games is making. Let's do it. And are maybe trying to work that way. And maybe it is being, lucrative for them. And, we sound like idiots. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I just don't really know who it's for or why someone just wouldn't rather play on their device's app store. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting.
I looked it up here. They don't have any in-app purchases, so I don't know how they're making.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know how they're making money off of this.
I have no idea. No idea.
So weird.
Yeah. Anyway, did you have something else to say about that?
No.
No one should have anything to say about that. We're going to the next thing.
I'm done with you, Netflix. I'm closing the app.
The next sort of big news is it was announced that there's no new Switch this year.
This fiscal year, correct?
This fiscal year, yes. So this is from thegamer.com. Go give them a click. So they were saying that basically writing this news article about there being no new Switch coming out this fiscal year. And if you read through it, the fiscal year ends in March 2023. So while people have been speculating that we're going to get like a more powerful Switch or like a Switch Pro, and there's been like some pretty intense leaks about that. I know NVIDIA, who makes graphics cards for PCs, they constantly are getting their stuff leaked. I don't know how, but there was in their database. It seems like they're partnering with Nintendo, and they have like the code name that they use for the Switch 1. They have basically that code name with the 2 at the end of it, saying like there's a new Switch coming out at some point, which honestly is great. Maybe a conversation for another day. But NVIDIA does really great stuff with their like AI technology that like gives people more games and better resolution, even if your hardware isn't up to snuff. And so that seems like it could be a good partnership. And maybe we'll talk about that eventually if it happens. But so like recently there's been like some big leaks coming out of like there's another Switch coming, and there has to be, right? Like we're about to hit the console's 6th anniversary in 2023.
Wow.
And so 6 years ago the Switch came out, and it hasn't dropped in price, and there hasn't been another one other than the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED. But like the internals of the Switch unchanged. And so you have to imagine there's going to be a more powerful Switch at some point. The Switch still sells so well, and it is just like such a good console.
That's the problem.
Yes, that is exactly the problem. You're right. But it's just
because they don't have an incentive to do it.
Yeah, but it's still kind of mind-boggling that like now we're reaching a point where like Switch games just aren't really looking good, and the excuse of like, oh, it's Nintendo is kind of catching up to them. Especially because we know that better hardware is out there that they could be using for a similar cost. And so I was surprised to see this, that at least for the first, quarter of 2023, we're not going to see a new Switch. Maybe we'll see a Switch announcement at some point, but I was surprised to see this. What about you?
I'm surprised as well. it seems like there's a leak every other day about a Switch 2. But
Yeah,
that could be everybody wanting to have the scoop, you know.
totally.
But I think at this point it's warranted because like how many versions of the DS did we have? We had
Yeah.
so many different DSs. Like it felt like there was one coming out every week, and they all continue to sell really well. Like the 3DS is one of their best-selling consoles, I believe. And so it's like, and then there was the 3DS, which was already an upgrade on the DS, and then they had the new 3DS.
Yeah.
Um, and there was the DS, the DSi, the DS Lite, the XL
That's
versions.
so
Like
true. Yeah. There were so many.
there was so many DSs, and it feels like they kind of forgot to do a bunch of versions of the Switch. I don't know, because
Yeah.
I don't know, like the appeal of the Lite, I guess is just like if you only want to do handheld and you don't want to pay the extra price for having the dock, boom, there's the Lite. Okay.
Right.
If you want the OLED, I got because I could get it for like pretty cheap by turning in my old one,
Yeah.
and I wanted the white one. And I do play handheld a lot, but I like the ability to have it docked. So the nicer
Docked, yeah.
screen did benefit me. But like games are having to do cloud streaming on there to look good.
Yeah.
And not everybody has like the internet infrastructure to support that. So it kind of like forces people to either like not get it on the Switch or just play like games that kind of look like they're from the last decade, not like modern games.
Yeah.
So it's definitely time, and I think. But the problem is the Switch keeps freaking selling because you've got Mario Kart, you've got Animal Crossing, you've got Smash, all games that look and run fine on
Yeah.
the Switch, and people love. So they're looking at it going like, well, we don't have like people are still buying it, so we don't really need to, is what I'm guessing. But
Yeah.
it just doesn't make like for us for the gamer audience, it doesn't really excite me when there's like new game announcements, because I know they're going to be so limited in their scope, in their graphics department, in the performance department. Like I'm sure Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be great, but like you see some of the mods that people make, or you see some of the games that are coming out on other consoles, and it's night and day, right?
Yeah.
Um, And I just, I think Nintendo is capable of a lot of great things, and I would love to see what they could do with newer technology, and like their devs could do without the limitations of the Switch, which is like really outdated by this point. It was outdated when it came out, right?
Yeah.
They're always like a few years behind. Like the Wii was like only 720p, but everybody
Right,
loved it,
yeah.
right? They're just relying on like they've always said like they're more of a toy company than they are like a video game company. So they're just like, it's our toy. But I think that it's time to sort of acknowledge that like you could be doing a lot better. You could be delivering something that actually
Right.
pushes the boundaries and isn't just like we shouldn't give it the Nintendo Pass anymore. I don't want to give it the Nintendo Pass of like
Yeah.
well, the new Mario's coming out and it runs at 30. It's Nintendo. Like, no, I don't I don't want to have to do that anymore. So it's a little bit disappointing to hear that we're going to have to wait a while for even an announcement. I would bet you if they did do a new one, it would come out holiday as well. So we're going to have to wait even longer.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you're spot on. I mean, we have big games coming out like Breath of the Wild 2, that could probably really benefit from having a more powerful system, right?
Don't even get me started on Pokemon. I would
It's true.
The new Pokemon games I'm really excited for mechanically, but for the gameplay, but they look like doo-doo, guys.
Yeah,
You
they
got to
look
wake
great.
up. If you think these games look acceptable in the year of our Lord 2022, you got to wipe yourself off, man. You got to splash yourself with cold water in the sink every morning. It's good for your skin. And you got to
Yeah.
wake up because they do not look good. Like look at Genshin Impact that can run on your phone, and it looks infinitely better than those games.
It does.
Look at other games on the Switch. Look at Mario Odyssey. Look at Breath of the Wild. I mean, it's unbelievable that we're getting games that look this bad. So I desperately crave a next generation, which would technically be a current generation Switch,
Right. Yeah.
so that their games can stop looking like unfinished mobile game betas. Because that's what they look like right now. Some of
Yeah.
them, like Pokemon, surely looks like it.
What's hard about, like, especially with the new Zelda game coming out, like the first Breath of the Wild was from 2017. By the time that game comes out, that will have been 6 years ago. And the reaction I don't want to have when playing the new Breath of the Wild is, oh my God, this looks like a game from 2017. You know, like I want that to be an experience where it's like, oh no, this is the next Nintendo game, you know? And maybe they keep delaying it because they are holding out for that to be like a launch title on the new console, which would be great, you know? But I guess I will get into it now. They need to have some sort of like upscaling technology that's better than what they have. And thankfully we have a lot of good PC builds that have that, right? And so NVIDIA is doing stuff with DLSS, which for those who aren't familiar is this process where, like, if you're playing a game on your PC, you can down-res it. So say I'm playing on a 1080p HD monitor. I can down-res my game to like 720. That way I'll get more frames. And then this AI technology will kind of patch it back up to 1080p. And it actually works really well. And so you don't really have to compromise if you have an older system. And so the Switch needs something like that, because it's fine if it's handheld. It's fine if the handheld screen is 720p, but I don't even know if you can find a TV that isn't 4K anymore, you know? You probably can. Right. But like that's very rapidly, if not already, has become the new norm and the new standard. And so it's like you would imagine that a docked Switch could reach those resolutions, and probably the only way that it's going to be able to do that is if it has some sort of like AI technology like that. And so I'm really hoping they do something like that. That seems like it would be, you know, the best of both worlds, where it's like, yep, I could dock it and it looks great because I know it's upscaling with like this really technologically advanced system, but then I can pull it right off and play it handheld and it still looks great on my OLED screen, because hopefully the new Switch will have OLED screens on all of them, you know? And that seems like if Nintendo did that, what a huge win that would be for them, right? To be like,
huge.
Yeah, 6 years has gone by. We're finally coming out with, you know, a brand new console, and handheld looks great. Docked, even better. And gosh, I think people would easily ditch their old systems for that. And
I think honestly, ultimately it's. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, honestly, maybe that's what they're waiting for. Maybe they are waiting to get to a point where it's like, we need to know definitively that people are gonna buy this new Switch, like, to replace their last one. But we're there, you know. I don't think we need to wait any longer. I think we are definitely at that point.
Yes, because I mean, they should be able to look around the industry and see all of the other developers who and all the other studios that make, you know, like the Xbox One X or, you know, the PS4 Pro, and see how well those sell and still sell in some cases, because you can't get a PS5. That it's like people want upgraded versions, but I think ultimately Nintendo has an image problem. They want to be a kids toy company, but they also want to be a major video games publisher, right? And it's hard to be both, because they just want to keep making toys with new gimmicks. And so it's hard for them to upgrade one of their toys. Like, I remember them talking about how they need to have, and you could see it in all their products, they need to have like a new gimmick. The Game Boy, like, then you get the Game Boy SP and it flips and it closes, and then you get the DS and it's got the stylus, and you get the 3DS, it's 3D, and then you get the Wii and motion controls, and the Switch, obviously it does the, you know, docked and undocked. And it's like, I don't need another gimmick. I don't need another, you know, toyetic feature. The Switch is a grand slam of an idea. If you just keep iterating on this design, you will make and you brand it well enough, so you don't just call it like the new Switch U or whatever. Right. You can make gamers happy, because you make games that are compelling to a wider audience than just kids. Yeah. And yet you put it on a system that is so toyetic and gimmicky, that it's like you gotta pick. I think you could please both by making a beefier system. That still isn't like, I don't want a $500 Switch, you know, and I don't think it needs to be that to be better. But I think, say even if you want to manufacture less, Nintendo can easily hit the ball out of the park here and please everybody, but they seem to be holding off, and I just think it's ultimately hurting them and the games that they make.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah. It is unfortunate and also fortunate. They have kind of carved out their own niche at this point in like the mainstream gaming world, where it's like no one else is really making handhelds and no one else is really doing anything with motion controls. And so it's like just continue to lean into that, I think, for them, and make party games that use the motion controls. That's great. Continue to make a handheld. People love that. They love being able to take their game on the go. And I don't think things like the Steam Deck, where it's like that is more like a computer. I don't think those are really a competition for something like the Switch yet. I think the Steam Deck is probably the closest we've gotten to something like that, especially at a price point. I mean, you can get the Steam Deck for like $400 or $500 and play like a big AAA game like God of War on it. And it looks good and runs at 30 FPS, It's like, do I need to have big AAA games like God of War running on my Switch? No. But do I want the games that are coming out by Nintendo to look better on my Switch? Absolutely I do. Yep. And, like what if the next iteration of the Switch could run less demanding games than God of War, something like Destiny 2, where it's like, wow, now I have a good Destiny 2 handheld experience where I can just like take it with me. If I have internet or Wi-Fi, I can go play somewhere else than my Xbox, and
because they're clearly trying to pander to that demographic a little bit by adding in like Skyrim and Doom onto the Switch. It's like you can't just keep saying like the Switch is a little toy for little kids when you've got Doom on your Switch.
Or they also have Control on there, which you can play via the cloud. So it's like they have games on there that it's like, okay, we want to offer these as options. I don't know how well those do or how well those sell. But yeah, I don't know. I just ultimately was hoping that we would get a new Switch before March of 2023. But who knows? Maybe they have an announcement in the pipeline and we'll know more next year. But next on our news list, this one I just thought was cool. I guess I don't really have a lot to share about it, but Discord support is coming to Xbox, which is the first of the like that we see on consoles. And so this was from the Xbox blog itself. They announced this, that there's going to be Discord party chat integration where you join a Discord call kind of on your phone or a device similar. And then you basically, through a series of steps, kind of transfer that call to your Xbox, and then that is the party that you use. So it doesn't seem like you can just like scroll all of Discord via the Xbox, and I don't really think it would even function well that way. But it is cool that there's at least an option, especially with games having more crossplay and PC and console gamers playing together more now than ever. Discord is just easily the most popular spot for PC gamers to talk. And so now that we have that option on a console, I think it's cool. But what's your take on this?
I'm really excited because I play with people. I cross-play with people a lot. And a lot of people prefer Discord. They like the quality. They like the features. They like the different rooms you can make and all that. And I do too. And I think it's unfortunate sometimes because my monitor doesn't have a speaker, and I wouldn't want echo even if I had a speaker. But if I use Discord, I have to use a different device, and I can't hear my game audio. And for a game like Sea of Thieves or Call of Duty or Destiny, you kind of need to hear sometimes. And it would also just be nice to be able to hear it. So when I do Discord, I just can't. But having it integrated with my Xbox means I can, essentially have it act as a party, and still be able to hear my games, but be able to hear, people crossplay, people on crossplay a lot more clearly. And I think it's also good timing because I don't know what's been going on, but Xbox parties have been increasingly less reliable lately. Like in the case of crossplay, like you would join me from your PC, and then it takes like 2 or 3 tries. You'll just keep getting booted. And this happens with some other friends of mine who play on PC, and they'll just join, and it takes like 3 or 4 tries of us inviting each other to new parties, and party encountered an error, and you just get kicked randomly. And it's just annoying to kind of go through that. You just want to say hi to your friends, and it's like taking like 5 minutes to talk to them. So having something more stable coming that I can still hear the game, I'm all for it. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm all for it too. I do think, yeah, you can use Xbox Party Chat on PC, and usually when I'm playing on PC, that's what I use to chat with my friends who are on Xbox. But like you said, it's not great. There's not a lot of customizability either, so turning people up and down, being able to incorporate different things, it's just not really all there. And honestly, they don't really need that. And so I think this is also kind of maybe a good step in the right direction, where I think Xbox Party Chat will probably continue to be the most dominant way that people chat while playing on Xbox, right?
Sure.
It's easy enough. I click on your profile, I say invite to party, you join, we're chatting. Boom, we're there. And so I definitely think for younger kids and people that just don't really want to have to deal with this, or they're just already, everybody's on Xbox, easily will still be the best way. However, there's just so much more functionality and stuff that you can do with Discord. Again, I think the steps to do it, I was just looking it up. So you have to join a call on the Discord mobile app. And then there's a join on Xbox feature, which takes you to the Xbox mobile app, which then lets you kind of tell your Xbox that you want to do a call on Discord. And so it's like, that's a lot of steps.
That can't be the final way to do it, right? Is that just for the insider build, or is that...
I think that's going to be the way they do it. And I think there hasn't just, I mean, you can do so much on Discord. It's not just for chatting. It's for video. It's for,
right.
Text conversations. There's just so much to it that they just couldn't possibly put that on the Xbox or any console and have it be an easily navigatable way of interacting.
Right.
However, maybe they can get to some point where it's like they do have a Discord, isolated app on consoles, and then in a Discord server you can say hey, this is where this is our console voice chat, and then people can just join that from their console, right? So there's a specific crossplay chat that your server has to have, and then that way it can be as easy as oh, I'm playing crossplay, I'm gonna play with my friends, we're gonna jump on Discord. It's I open the app, I say I join this party, boom, I'm there, rather than it being a rigmarole of what it is now. But I like the option. It will be nice. I don't know that I will be using it with the parties that I play with anytime soon. But if we ever needed to, it's there, and I like that. So I think that's a good addition.
Options are good.
They sure are. And our last piece of news for today is the Embracer Group buys literally everything, but specifically Lord of the Rings. And so this is from Tom Warren at The Verge. Just a little bit about this. Well, I guess I'll kind of add some context. The Embracer Group is kind of like an investment group where they just own a bunch of studios and IP and stuff like that. And so they're just in the market of making games and media and other stuff. And so they own publishers like Gearbox, who makes Borderlands. They also just acquired the studios that make games like Tomb Raider and Deus and Thief.
So they don't make games. They acquire studios that make games, yes?
Well, so what I think happened is, so this company used to be THQ Nordic, which probably you've heard of.
Oh.
THQ Nordic is still a thing, but then they also kind of became the Embracer Group, if that makes sense. If I'm understanding this correctly.
Embracer Group.
Yes, because THQ Nordic also, they just published the new SpongeBob game, Battle for Bikini Bottom. And so they're still making games, but recently, the Embracer Group just came upon a bunch of cash. Saudi Arabia recently bought 1 billion stake of Embracer, which is around 8% of the company's shares. So that's a huge company. Yeah, so they've got a lot going on. And so I don't know their exact makeup. Me calling them an investment group is probably not completely what they are. That's probably not the best way to describe them, but they are essentially just a group that owns a lot of things in media, and they have just been on an acquisition spree recently. And so, and Anyway, this week they just bought a bunch of different studios, a bunch of different stuff. But I think what I wanted to talk about with you is they bought the IP rights to Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. So, like I said, this is from TheVerge.com. The Lord of the Rings and Hobbit rights mean Embracer now has control over movies, video games, board games, merchandising, stage productions, and even theme park rights for the Tolkien fantasy franchises. This includes Amazon's very big and expensive take on Lord of the Rings, which will debut on Prime. And Embracer notes that it could even, quote, explore additional movies based on iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum. I haven't seen Lord of the Rings. I don't know how to pronounce these names. Galadriel and Eowyn.
Galadriel.
Galadriel. Eowyn, is that one?
Yep.
And other characters from the literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien, end quote. So I personally, this is my greatest sin in life. I haven't seen the Lord of the Rings movies. I actually would like to. I know.
Batman.
I actually would like to before that Amazon series comes out, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. However, you don't need to have seen those films to know just the gargantuan that they are in sort of, the space. And there has been games made after them, like Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor and stuff like that. But
let's not forget the Lego games.
The Lego games, but the movies hold up really well. I will say the one thing, and I think someone confirmed this, they did not acquire the rights to books. So they're not going to be writing any books about it, which I think is kind of an interesting thing to leave out. But what they do have control of are movies, video games, board games, merchandising, stage productions, and even theme park rights. And so who knows? Maybe we'll get a Lord of the Rings theme park, which I actually think would be really dope. But
that would be really cool.
Yeah. But Matt, what do you think about this?
So just for clarification, the Embracer Group is a Swedish video game and media holding company. So that's kind of their thing. But I think, I don't know, it's a little worrying. They haven't done anything with it yet. Obviously, they just acquired it. But the thing that worried me the most about this was when they said the exploring characters and making movies about those characters. Like, I don't know. It seems a little Solo, a Star Wars story-y, where it's just like kind of just milking, the nostalgia of the franchise and making a mediocre product for a mediocre product's sake, just to like retain the rights and kind of keep it relevant and raise brand recognizability or whatever. Like, I don't know. It feels a little cynical, or it feels like it could get cynical very quickly. Of like, Gandalf, a Lord of the Rings tale. Like, I don't want to see that. That sounds kind of gross. I especially don't want to see remakes. I don't want to see any more prequels. The Hobbit movies did not go over extremely well as they could have. And there's already like a ton of extended canon if you talk about like the Silmarillion and all that. But I don't know. It worries me that they could take this franchise and kind of exploit it and expand on it in a way that would kind of put it in the place where Star Wars is now, where it's kind of confused, it's kind of identityless, and it's kind of just exploring like, okay, we've got Ahsoka, what are we going to do with her? Let's make a show about Ahsoka, and let's give her some little adventure to go on that's like kind of important, but not important enough to conflict with the main canon, because we still want this to be canon in the main timeline. So I think it could get messy really quickly, and I also don't love it when big companies acquire IPs, especially when it's like this, as sacred of a work as Lord of the Rings is. So I'm just scared. I don't want them to ruin it. I don't want them to, because I do love this property.
Right.
But so I hope they take good care of it is what I'll say. If they make a Lord of the Rings theme park with like a cool, like a little Hobbiton that you can visit and some cool rides and some cool, fantasy taverns to eat at, I'm all in. But additional movies about characters, kind of grosses me out, if I'm honest.
Yeah. That's sort of what I get the sense of with the franchise, is that the original trilogy of movies was just so good that
good, perfect.
Building on them in any way is almost like hurting them. And I think we initially saw that with The Hobbit, right? Like the Hobbit movies were not very well received.
No.
And that's for a multitude of reasons. But I think you're getting into dangerous territory when you're kind of messing with a franchise as beloved as the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I also hope they're careful with it. The stuff that they have done in video games is really good. Like the more recent games like Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, people love, and there's like systems in those games that are like the Nemesis system.
People love that.
Yeah, where it's like if like an enemy kills you or something, I think they get like promoted in the army, so the next time you see that enemy they'll have like a new name and voice and stuff like that.
That's cool.
That's cool. You know, it kind of makes the world feel like it's evolving to you and as you play.
Yeah.
And so
I guess I just focused on the movies side of it, but games wise, if they were able to, like, since they have such a large, budget, if they're able to make like a huge proper modern Lord of the Rings game that's like kind of like, Marvel's Spider-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy, where they kind of take the source material and, really give it the big budget treatment, really make it immersive. And they need to really nail the scale. That's so important with Lord of the Rings. I think that could be really cool. Like a game, like a faithful game adaptation with like modern mechanics and graphics or anything would be really cool. I'm just more so worried about the movies side of things.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see. The Amazon show, isn't that supposed to be like the most expensive show of all time?
Yeah, I've heard that. Its budget
like
is insane.
Yeah, so like if that show ends up being good, maybe there's some room, for us to breathe there. But
sure.
I also see, like stuff like board games. Like, what are they just gonna make like a Lord of the Rings Monopoly? Like what does that mean? Or are they gonna like really go in and make their own board game?
Hey man, board games have been blowing up ever since the pandemic started. I mean, like they've been huge for a while, obviously, but like board games really have blown up recently.
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
I wouldn't put it past them to make something cool.
Right, but like that's what I would like to see. I'd like them to make their own board game or like their own card game. Like a card battle game, like Gwent from the Witcher and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I also think while you were talking, I thought this, maybe their first move, which they probably won't do because I'm sure they're in the business of just trying to make money. But maybe their first move with this IP specifically is just to make a really good game. Like what would it look like for them to just like make a statement of trust for fans of like, okay, here's the first game we're making. It's a big AAA single player game that feels good to play, has good progression, like has all of this stuff that people really want, when in actuality they're probably going to make like a MMO mobile game, right, where it's like it's going to be like a Diablo Immortal type situation where it's like you have to spend a bunch of money to level up. That's like a worst case scenario for me, right, is like if they turn this even to like a Marvel's Avengers situation where it's like as much as I've played that game and actually like think that game is fun and love it, you make live service games essentially to make money. I think there are games that are the exception, like Destiny 2, where like that is a living and evolving world that feels really meaningful, and they also are making a lot of money over a long span of time.
Right.
Much more than if they just would have released a game and moved on to something else. And so that's probably the route they'll go, is just trying to make money in that way. But how cool would it be if they really did just make a statement of like, we are going to make such a big AAA badass Lord of the Rings game, and like people are gonna love it, like game of the year.
And I bet
status,
you they could beat Bethesda and make essentially Elder Scrolls 6 before Elder Scrolls 6, like a big epic fantasy game. They could do it probably before Bethesda's gonna do it.
Yeah. And honestly, like, people are into that. Like, Elden Ring is easily probably going to be the game of the year this year, right? And it's sold amazing. And that's like a deep, full of secrets, good combat system. The story in game isn't super fleshed out, but there is a lore there. And so it's like, what if we just saw like a huge game like Elden Ring just have like the story backing and the world backing of something like Lord of the Rings. And the thing is, like, they made Elden Ring from the ground up. Like, that wasn't based on anything. Like, we have the scenery, we have the story here. You just have to fill in the blanks with like good gameplay, right? And so it's like half of that work of even creating a game is already done for you. Arguably, the most important part of making a Lord of the Rings game is already done for you. You just have to
nailing the like aesthetic, the feel, the world.
Yes, and you just got to fill in the blanks. And so, I don't know. I think that would hit really well. That would land really well. Hopefully they do something with it. This just felt so out of the blue, though. And so when this is probably the most recent bit of news on our list. But when this came out, it was like, what? Like, they bought Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit? Like,
you can't just buy Lord of the Rings.
Right. It was like, where did that come from? Why did they do it? Like, who
Sorry,
knew
babe,
about
I'm going to be a little bit late. I'm out buying Lord of the Rings right now.
Yeah, it's like Dad left and went bought Lord of the Rings and never came home, And it's so, I don't know. It just is so crazy that this just happened. And like, we learned it by like a press release. It was like, by the way, we bought a Lord of the Rings, and everyone was like, wait. What did you just buy? And it was just, so I hope they do something cool with it. I'm holding my breath to kind of see what's next. But you have to imagine that they wouldn't have bought all of those rights if they didn't have something in mind for it. And so hopefully they're giving this some thought. But I guess only time will tell.
That's what we thought when Disney bought Star Wars. Anyways,
Matt, let's land this ship. What are we excited for next? What is
coming up for you
that you're really stoked about?
Okay. Wrapping up with what we're excited for next. I'm really excited for the next Destiny season.
Yeah.
Me too. I am really excited for Arc 3.0. It looks very fun, and hunters are getting a new super, and I am a hunter main, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm excited. This at the time of this podcast recording, the big old Destiny 2, Lightfall showcase thing that they're doing has not aired yet. Maybe we might do something about that. But I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what's coming, because I have not dug Destiny's sort of vow of silence that they've taken recently. Where we didn't know anything about Season of the Haunted. We didn't know anything about Solar 3.0. It just was kind of pointless and kind of set expectations way too high for a season that was kind of like fine.
Right.
So I'm excited that they're going to be generating hype again, that there's going to be something that I can tangibly, see and be excited for, instead of just being like, I wonder what's going to happen. So I'm excited about that.
I'm too. I feel really, well, I guess the same way. I feel really excited about it. I don't love how quiet they've been kind of on all fronts about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think they kind of pendulum swing in this way. History has shown, where it's like a lot of times they're like telling us everything, and then a lot of times they're keeping stuff close to the chest, and then it's kind of like, I don't know the rhyme or reason as to why. Maybe they don't even, but it just kind of feels right for the time. Who knows? But I'm very excited for the new season. I think Destiny's seasons have only been getting better. I do think there's a narrative of like seasonal fatigue, though. I think people are kind of getting worn out of it.
Yep, I wrote about that.
Yeah. But I think, I don't know. I still think it's a good cadence, and I think they are no longer in a place where like they're really trying to convince people to like play the whole season. I think they're kind of in a space now where they're like, we know when people are going to play. We're going to keep the season length the way it is, and the end of seasons are always kind of a dip in player activity, and I think that's fine. The showcase is coming out 2 seasons before the next DLC is very interesting to me, because you have to imagine there's something happening in this upcoming season that is going to impact the story in some way, right?
Has to
where
be.
like they have to show that. I will say I wasn't when they did this for the Witch Queen, they gave the Witch Queen reveal, and we knew like what Savathun looked like and that she was on the move and doing stuff. But the current season we were in, it was like Savathun's locked up, and all the characters are like, "What is she gonna do?"
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, "Oh, this kind of sucks." I mean, I guess it's like I read the first chapter and the last chapter of a book, and now I'm just reading everything in between, and.
Yeah.
So I didn't love that. So I hope that's not the feeling I get for the next 2 seasons from a story side. But I do think it's fun. I think Destiny is probably the best in the business in generating hype. And so it's always super exciting when we get to see new stuff and everything come out. And I am finally happy to see all of the subclasses meet their 3.0 updates. I'm interested to see what happens seasons after this, where we don't have like a subclass to look forward to, and the seasonal meta is really dictated by like the artifact mods and stuff like that.
That's when I really feel like people are gonna wake up to the seasonal fatigue, when there's not like new builds to try out and new like aspects that the community can grind for and all that. Like when that's gone and it's just like the weekly story mission with an event or whatever, like exactly. I feel like they need to change it up or else like that'll get really old.
They did recently say they are looking to do an overhaul of our combat mods. So stuff like Warmind cells charged with light and elemental wells, which I think need a refresh. I think at this point, like we don't really like, there's nothing really else to build on. We kind of know what everything is doing. And so I'm excited for that. Hopefully we'll get some news about that. Maybe it'll just be like a showcase about the story though. So, we will see. But
do we want to predict real quick, like a quick predict of what's going to happen?
Sure. Yeah. What do you think?
I think obviously we're going to get information on the new season. I think the new season is going to be, I'm going to predict right now, Aramis is a part of it, either this season or the next season. Mm-hmm. I think Aramis is going to be unfrozen. I think there's been a lot of stuff leading us to think that we're going to have another like Siva or Rasputin season. So I think those are the two we got to watch out for, because I feel like they're setting up like the rogues gallery. We've got like Callus was the focus of last season. He's the herald of the witness. And then who else is a big darkness lover? Aramis. And then, Siva is always a threat that I guess could come back. And Rasputin would be a big defense for us, right? For defending the last city. So I think that's the direction that they're going with. I don't know which order. It's either going to be Aramis then Siva or Rasputin then Aramis. You know what? I'm going to say right now Rasputin, because they just did a big villain one, so now we're going to get our defense and then Aramis. That's what I'm going to say. Rasputin is the theme of this season. And I think we will get a little tiny peek at the witness coming in Lightfall. That's what I think we're going to get. Boosh.
Yeah. I agree. I do think Aramis is going to be part of it in some way. I don't know if that's going to be in the upcoming season or not. But I think you're right. I think we will kind of get a taste of like the witness is building his like Suicide Squad, basically. Like he's collecting his villains to like, go out and be his minions and everyone they control. You know what I mean? And so what's that going to mean for certain houses of the Fallen? And what's that going to mean for, all of that. I am interested to see. I mean, we haven't had. I do think there's more to Savathun before our next DLC, and so I think that will be one of the seasons. I think we will return to Savathun because we killed Savathun and then her ghost just like dipped, right? And so we have Savathun quote like safely stored. But
you think we're gonna res her this season?
That never works out. I don't know if we'll res her this season, but I wonder because you know how we have. We're kind of in cahoots with the Cabal right now. Like, Keidel's on our side, and we're working with them. I wonder if we aren't going to get the Hive on our side.
I think we are. I think we're building up like a big Hive and Fallen and Cabal alliance to go against like the Witness and the Scorn and the Taken and the Vex.
Yeah, and Callus and all his minions, right? And so that's the thing that I think is interesting is now it's like, okay, we can't just call it the Cabal anymore. There's like the good Cabal that we fight with, and then there's Callus's Cabal that are different.
Right.
And same thing, like we have Taniks or Varix, whichever one is our friend. And you have like his and we have his fallen crew, but obviously like Aramis and her fallen crew aren't good. It was, I know. I'm a future work role, so
no,
I'm not. But so I think this next season we'll get some like Aramis stuff. I think the season before our Lightfall DLC, maybe we'll also get an official name. I think the last time we heard Lightfall wasn't the official title. Maybe it is.
Really? Oh, I thought it was.
But maybe the one we didn't know about was the Final Shape. I think that is not the official title, which is the DLC after Lightfall. Anyway, I think we'll get an Aramis season, and then I think the season before Lightfall will be like us gathering our crew. You know, it's like maybe the Witness is getting their Suicide Squad, but like we're gonna build our Avengers. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
what a crossover!
I know, the crossover of the century. So that's kind of my prediction. I think that's where it's headed. I think we'll get some story beats about that. I also think there's going to be an announcement of a new subclass.
Oh, at this showcase?
I'm calling it.
Oh, you think that'll be like their big mic drop moment?
Yeah. Well, so this wasn't part of the news that we talked about, but recently, a lot of the like
that leak
Destiny 2 artists, they have I don't know what the website is, but they have a website to like showcase their art and like their stuff like that, which basically is like an online resume or portfolio of like what they've done.
I think it's like ArtStation.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there was one Destiny dev that was he had worked on some finishers, and so he had put them on his art station, but the Guardian he was using a subclass with a bunch of like stuff that we hadn't seen before.
And it was in green. It was a green color.
Green, like Toxic, which we have in like Thorn and Osteostriga and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I think they're gonna, but then once it started to do the rounds, it got taken down, and so people grabbed clips of it and stuff like that. But I think they're gonna announce like a new Darkness subclass that's going to be around like decay and poison and stuff like that. And I think we're barreling towards kinetic weapons not being a thing anymore. I don't know if that'll happen here or not. That's just kind of a side thought. I think if we've learned anything with the subclass 3.0 changes, it's that like they want you to be using the element of that subclass.
It's true.
To kind of build on it. And so now kinetic weapons are kind of in this like, what do we do with them space? And so I think eventually we won't have any kinetic weapons, and we'll just have like weapons that are of what's the word I'm looking for? Of a elemental. Yeah. Whether it be,
unless that big combat mod rework makes like kinetic weapons more viable.
That's true. Yeah. Who knows what they do with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just saw the majority of weapons having an element. But
one last prediction I got to give you. I'm going to say they're still going to ignore Osiris. I think they've forgotten that he exists.
Yeah.
We got him back and he was asleep, and we haven't heard anything from him since, and I think they will continue to forget about him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we'll bring him up or they'll resurrect him for like a Vex season. Who knows? The next thing I'm excited for, moving on, is Halo Infinite is getting some ranked changes, and co-op and Forge are kind of in the pipeline. And so I'm excited to go back to that. I really enjoy the gameplay of Halo Infinite. It's kind of fallen out of my rotation for now, but I do think like the ranked changes is adding a ranked duos mode, which I think will be a lot of fun. Co-op campaign and Forge and all those shenanigans will be a lot of fun. And so I am really looking forward to those finally making Halo Infinite what'll feel like a complete game.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and I will not add anything to it. Last thing I'm looking forward to, and I think we're both looking forward to this also, is the D23 Expo. I recently wrote about this on batterylow.co. But this is the world's largest Disney convention. It's like San Diego Comic-Con, but for just Disney stuff, which is the perfect Comic-Con for me. And I, of course, am excited to see Disney animated news, Pixar, and Star Wars and Marvel stuff. I'm most excited for Disney Park stuff. And I want to see what they're going to do with the future of Disneyland and Walt Disney World and all that. But I'm very keen on what they're going to do with Star Wars. Moving forward in the theaters and as a brand, right? We're still kind of exploring prequels. Like the High Republic is like a way prequel, right. And like Mandalorian and Ahsoka is like in between quels, and it's like let's move somewhere new and tell a new thing that isn't bound by a bunch of timeline shenanigans, blah. Because like every time a new trailer for a Star Wars thing comes out, I have to explain to my parents like when it takes place, and it's exhausting, and I don't want to have to do that anymore.
I know, yeah.
So and it's just too much to keep up. You got an Andor coming out, which is in between like 3 and 4, or 3 and Rogue One, and then you got Ahsoka and Mandalorian season 3, which I am excited for, by the way. I'm so excited for those. But
yeah,
I'm hoping to see something that pushes it in a completely new direction. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking forward to D23 for that reason as well.
Yeah. I also am looking forward to D23. I would say I'm interested in the park news. It's not like something that I'll like go search out the news for. I'll probably just wait for you to tell me. But I am excited for the Star Wars and Marvel movies and show stuff. But they also announced that there's going to be a Disney Star Wars Marvel games showcase. So
right.
I'm interested in that. So I think they did mention that it's going to be like past games and announcements, and so I don't really know what they're going to show about games that have already released, but they showed footage for at least stuff like Jedi Fallen Order and the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I'm really looking forward to what they'll announce. Stuff
you think we get a Jedi Survivor trailer?
I think we get a Jedi Survivor trailer. Absolutely. Ooh! What a better place to do it. Especially if it's coming out like early 2023. You know they have one. So, yes, I think that's coming.
Oh, my gosh.
So that's the thing, though. We know that they have some stuff in the pipeline, right? Like we know Jedi Fallen Survivors coming out. We know that PlayStation is making a Wolverine game. Marvel's Avengers is still getting updates, and so I wonder if they'll announce like the next big DLC for that. Which, speaking of that game has kind of died out, but they like just had a big like planning session for that game, and so it seems like it lives. So I wonder if they'll announce anything about that. But you also have Marvel and Midnight Suns, and you have some of the mobile games that they do.
Spider-Man 2?
Spider-Man 2 they may show some stuff for. Because that comes out early 2023. So that's not even like an announcement. That, we'll probably get a trailer or something for that. But
yeah, because all we've gotten is a teaser with Venom at the end.
Yeah, it's true. This probably won't happen, but I am super hoping that they come out with like a Star Wars Battlefront reboot.
Oh my gosh, that would make the event if there was a Battlefront 3, or just if they just rebranded again and do Star Wars Battlefront.
A big team battle, Star Wars Battlefront, and like took everything they learned from, because Battlefront 2 ended up being a really excellent game, and so
yes,
building on that, I think, especially now that we are in kind of the next gen / current gen cycle, I think they can make something really awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not expecting any big announcements like that, though. That's kind of my like what if,
sure,
predict. But no, I think it'll just be fun to see what they show and what's going on. I imagine there'll probably be some crossovers in some games and stuff like that. But like Marvel just did a crossover with FIFA of all games, so there's a bunch of So it's like the FIFA Ultimate Team stuff. It's really not that big of a deal, but so I imagine maybe we'll see some crossovers in other games. There's also some rumors that EA is making an Iron Man game based on the physics of Anthem, which, even though Anthem wasn't a very fun game in and of itself, being able to fly around like Iron Man in Anthem was easily the best part. Like, they had the combat in that game down as Iron Man, you know what I mean? So a single player Iron Man game sounds pretty cool, but who knows?
Give it to Respawn, please.
It's true. I'm just really excited to see what they do and what they announce. So looking forward to that. But that'll do it for the Battery Low podcast today. Matt, why don't you send us out?
All right, folks. Thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Battery Low Blog for both of those. And read all our stories on our website, batterylow.co. Our theme song is Echoes by HurricaneTurtle. Be sure to check that track totally out. And we will see you next time, folks. Oh, and folks, check your batteries.